Your brain is literally addicted to worry, and that is why everything you have tried about anxiety isn't working. I spent months trying every anxiety fixing techniques I could find, but nothing stuck. And then I discovered the real reason why my anxiety kept coming back. I am not a doctor. I'm just a guy who went from having daily panic attacks to finally breaking the cycle. And in the next few minutes, I will show you the exact 6-step system that finally break my anxiety loop. Here is something that I learned the hard way about anxiety, and if you're like me who loves to analyze and problem solve everything, this might sting a bit. For years, every time I had anxious thoughts, my first instinct was to think my way out of it. It's always like, okay, what's causing it? How can I fix the problem? What can I do differently? I treated my mind like a computer that just needed the right input to work properly. But then I start to notice the weird things. The more I try to analyze my anxious thoughts, the more anxious I become. I will be lying in bed at 2 a.m. I couldn't fall asleep. I had this familiar tight feeling in my chest, and it's painful. So I would search how to fix anxious thought for the 100th time. Then I'll be doing the usual breathing exercises, trying to reframe my thoughts. I did like every CBT exercise that I could find on YouTube. Sure, I feel better for a moment, and then the anxious thoughts came back again, and it got even worse. It is like fighting a hydra. You solve one worry and then 3 more pop up. It never ends. Here's something that I wish I knew earlier when you're having these anxiety attacks. Your prefrontal cortex literally goes offline. It is the part responsible for making decisions, to make rational choices. You are in a fight or flight situation. Your body is tense, and trying to think your way out of anxiety in those situations is like trying to have a rational conversation when someone is screaming in your ears. I'm not saying these cognitive techniques or these heads up approach or reframing kind of approach doesn't work. They work great for many people, but especially when you are calm. But in these kind of intense situations, they all feel like useless. But there is another thing that will shock you, and it's actually backed by brain research. Apparently, when you worry, your brain releases dopamine. Yeah, the same chemical that got released when you eat a chocolate or scroll on social media. But why would our brain reward for something that feels so awful and painful? I learned that when we were younger, worrying actually served a purpose. It was our way of trying to feel safe in unpredictable family situations. As children, we thought if we could predict every unpredictable situations, we could protect ourselves from danger. For example, if you had an unpredictable parent, you might think, if I can just figure out what mood they're in, I can avoid being in trouble. This is a complete unconscious thing. You might not even notice it. But this gives your child brain a sense of control, even though it has no power to change the parent's behavior. So without even realizing it, we are all becoming addicted to worrying. Sure, it helped us as a kid, but as an adult, this constant mental analysis doesn't help us anymore. It in fact backfired. It just creates more and more anxiety, and our brain is still stuck to that old pattern. Then I started noticing something even more interesting. Some days I would have an anxious thought, and I'll be like, okay, I don't care, I'm cool. But on other days, that same anxious thought would send me into panic state. I couldn't figure out the differences until I realized it wasn't about the thoughts at all. The difference was what I was feeling in my body when I feel tense, when I feel on edge. That is when these thoughts become terrifying. Only then I realized my anxious thoughts aren't causing my anxiety. They were responding to something that is already happening in the body. They're just a byproduct of it. What happened is that our body first pick up on some kind of stress signals. And then our mind, being this meaning-making mix and machines, have to make sense of that pain. So it starts to mix up worries. So all this time, when I was focusing on changing my thoughts, I was focusing on the symptoms instead of focusing on the root cause. And this realization led me to see my own childhood, because everything starts from our childhood, right? I had a pretty normal childhood, no abuse, no major trauma. I got everything I wanted, which made it even more confusing, because normally when we have these kind of symptoms, we come from a broken family or abusive household. I had nothing. So I kept asking, why do I feeling this way? Why am I being like this? Am I just being dramatic? But only when I look at my family dynamics, I start to see some patterns. With my mother, there is no issue, everything is fine. But with my dad, there is some emotional distance. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a bad father. He always supported me and provided for me. But emotionally, there was this quiet distance between us that I couldn't explain back then. Now looking back, I realized my dad carried a lot of his own anxiety and stress. He was always worried about work, always intense about something. And as a sensitive kid, I think I kind of absorbed that anxious energy without realizing it. The ironic part is, because I didn't want to be anxious like him, I tried so hard to be calm and to be controlled that I actually disconnected from him even more. And that disconnection created this very own anxiety that I was trying so hard to avoid it. See, if you feel emotionally distant from the people who are supposed to love and protect you, as a kid, your nervous system picks up on a sense of this quiet, constant alarm. Even if everything looks fine on the surface, this is called parental mismatch. I'm not saying I'm blaming my dad or saying anyone is fault, but it's very important to look at our childhood if you are having similar experience like me. And this understanding led me to try something that's completely different. So instead of trying to think my way out of anxiety, I start to focus on what's happening in my body. So one time I was having my usual anxiety attack. I was in this panic state, and instead of immediately going to my head and trying to analyzing it, I tried something that I learned from Dr. Russell Kennedy's work on anxiety. I put my hand on my chest because that's where I'm feeling the pain, and I just stay with it. It was so uncomfortable and painful. Every part of me told me to grab my phone and distract myself, try to do other things instead of doing this. But I stayed with it for like a minute, and surprisingly, for the first time in my life, the urge of worry and the feeling of panic eventually went away. So here's the step-by-step approach that has been helping me, and the final step is where the magic happened, but it is also the hardest part. So step 1 is to interrupt the pattern. The moment I start to notice my anxiety is happening, I resist the urge to go to my head and analyze, and I just pause. Step 2 is to shift your focus downward. I consciously move my attention from my head and into my body. Think of it like stepping out of a noisy room. You need to locate the physical sensation where you are feeling the pain. Ask yourself, where am I feeling this anxiety and my pain? For me, it's around my chest area. For most people, it's usually between your throat to your stomach, between that line, and you'll find it. Step 4 is to understand what is happening. I remind myself that my anxious thoughts aren't causing the pain. It is a physical alarm sensation in my body. The thoughts are just my mind trying to make sense of this uncomfortable feeling. Once I understand this, I can stop fighting these thoughts and I can stay with the actual source. Step 5 is to make physical contact and breathe. I put my hand directly on the place where I feel this pain, and I slowly take long exhales. This sends a safety signal to our nervous system. This shifts us into a parasympathetic and rest and relax state instead of this fight or flight survival mode. The last step is to stay with the sensation. This is the hardest part, but this is where the magic happens. It will be so uncomfortable and painful, but just breathe and try to stay as long as you can without fighting the thoughts, and automatically the thoughts will fade away and you will be okay. I have to realize that I have to be there for myself and no one is coming to save me. This kind of alarm is my younger self asking for help, and I have to be there. The same is for you. So you have to be kind for yourself. You have to share compassion to your younger self. I want to be honest with you. Anxiety recovery isn't a straight line. I still have days where anxiety hit me and I felt like I had made no progress, but it is completely normal and it's part of the process. The only way to see how you actually heal or not is how fast you respond to these situations and how well you can stay with that alarm sensation. So next time you feel this kind of anxiety attacks, try not to grab your phone and distract yourself and do the thing I've just said, and I can guarantee you that you will feel a lot better. If you have actually tried this, and comment below what you think, and I really hope this helped you in some ways, and thank you so much for watching, guys.